my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am, somewhat randomly, I admit, doing my reading wrap-up for the month of January 2023, January of this year. I've been somewhat failing to keep on top of wrap-ups for well over a year now, and I have a plan to catch up on my wrap-ups on this channel. The plan involves starting with January 2023 for reasons I'm not going to disclose, because if I tell you what the plan is and then I fail, I'll have felt that I've failed. Whereas if I don't tell you what the plan is and then I fail, I will have uploaded a wrap-up for a month that maybe you want to see the wrap-up for, and then I'll still feel good about myself. I read 3 books in January, one of which I've already done a separate review for on this channel, so this should be fairly quick. The first book I read in the year was The Spare Man by Robinette Kowal. I buddy read this with my friend Joe from Final Blow Joe. I'll link his channel. This is a new science fiction novel from Robinette Kowal, which is not a part of her prior Lady Astronaut series. This is a different thing entirely. It is a murder mystery on a space cruise ship. The title indicates that it is a riff on The Thin Man, which I have never read that book or seen the movie adaptation, but I believe that that has to be okay because this can't possibly be an actual adaptation or retelling of that story, because I think both the book and the movie are still under copyright. They're not in the public domain. So even though the marketing for this was like Thin Man in space, I don't believe this is actually a retelling. This is about a newly married couple, Tesla and Shal, who are on their honeymoon on this space cruise when murders start to happen, and it seems like Shal is being framed for the murder. These two are sort of undercover using secret identities on this cruise ship because Tesla is a celebrity and she is trying not to be recognized. She is a very wealthy heiress who is also an inventor who had a very famous, notorious accident that left her more seriously disabled than she appears to be to a casual observer. This book has gotten a lot of praise for its disability representation. Tesla has a service dog who is prominently featured and one of the greatest things about the book. She uses a cane only sometimes, but sort of most importantly to her narrative, she has an implanted system that allows her to dial back on her physical pain, but she needs to not over-rely on it, lest she actually really hurt herself. And that's one of the things that contributes to the growing tension of the high stakes of this book as events build, and she's relying on this much more heavily than she should be as the book progresses, and it becomes more and more imperative that she push herself harder and harder to try to find the culprit. The relationship between Tesla and Shal is one of the most compelling things about the book. They're characters that I felt I got to know very quickly and got invested in their relationship almost immediately. Shal is a retired detective who used to do a true crime TV show about solving cold cases or something. I'm not remembering the specifics. But even though he is himself a minor celebrity, he doesn't come from the background of extreme economic privilege that Tesla does, and so they have these two different perspectives on events and on the best course of action. How do you treat the various employees on this cruise ship where arguably things are being handled very, very badly. They are not handling this murder situation and investigation well at all. And Tesla's instinct is to start sort of throwing her weight around to make things go her way, and Shal's instinct is to sort of do the opposite. Tesla also has like this incredibly fierce lawyer that she gets involved, but with the ship going further and further away from Earth, there's like a longer and longer time lag on the calls to the lawyer to actually like get a response. Up until near the end of this book, I was thinking this was going to be 5 stars for me. I was enjoying it just that much. The reason it's not has to do with the actual mystery plot. This mystery plot gets very, very complicated and convoluted, and then at the end it gets wrapped up very quickly, and I don't think all of the loose ends were wrapped up in a way that made sense. As I mentioned, I was buddy reading this with Joe, and so I had Joe to like bounce my questions off at the end, like, did we get an answer to this? What about that thing that didn't make sense? Did we know what happened to that? And so I don't think it's just me that like failed to pick up on things that I was supposed to pick up on that explained stuff. I do think there were some holes in this, and that's very frustrating. I generally, as a mystery reader, I don't try to like armchair detective a mystery as I'm reading. I am fine to sort of let the clues fall into place as they fall into place for the characters. But then at the end, if everything isn't explained fully to my satisfaction, I get grumpy. And that's why this is 4 stars for me and not 5. The next book I read was my first and so far only 5-star read of the year so far, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia, Faeries by Heather Fawcett. This I had an e-arc of from NetGalley. I did a full review on this channel already. It's a double review video paired with The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. I'll link that. And then because it has been my only 5-star read of the year so far, I realized at a certain point I did need to buy a physical copy of it because I need to have this on my shelves. There is another book in this series coming out next year. I will be buying that in hardcover as well. This is charming, delightful fantasy alt history with like scholarly Fae research and just the most enjoyable dynamic between the 2 main characters. That's the reason to read this book. Go watch my review if you are interested. And then the third and final book I read in January was Thick as Thieves by Megan Whalen Turner. This is the 5th book in the Queen's Thief series. Let me double check that. Yes, this is the 5th book. This was disappointing for me only that it wasn't a 5-star read, and all 4 of the first 4 books in this series were 5-star reads for me. I kind of had hopes that the whole series would be consistently 5 stars from beginning to end. This dashed my hopes in that regard, but that doesn't mean I didn't love this book. I did. This was a 4-star read. This continues to have the type of writing style that had me hooked from the first page. I couldn't put it down. It had that quality that all of the other books in this series have had for me. Plot. Let me tell you what this book is about without too many spoilers. This is the book in this series that finally brings us to the Mede Empire, which is the big imperial threat that's sort of been looming in the background of the plot of the first 4 books, as the series has mostly had to do with the interplay between the 3 kingdoms on one peninsula that is sort of like pseudo-Greece in this Mediterranean fantasy world. And politically, what we've seen at this point in like the politics arc of this series is that those 3 kingdoms are going to need to unite to be able to face the Mede imperial threat. The protagonist of this book was a minor character in, I want to say, the second book. His name is Kemet, and he is a very high-ranking slave who runs the household of a major political figure in the Mede Empire. I have been reading this series very slowly because, one, I always read series slowly because I never get around to finishing them, and two, just because they are books that I know can reliably get me out of a reading slump, and so I save them sort of for that purpose. I have not yet read the final book, which is the one that comes after this. This is the penultimate book in the series. But the downside of reading a favorite series that slowly is that I am not totally sure if there were things that I could have remembered about Kemet from Queen of Atolia that would have made me care about him more. I just can't know that because I didn't bother to go back and reread. So at the beginning of this book, Kemet is confronted by a soldier from Atolia who is at court, who basically offers to help him run away and escape the Mede Empire. Kemet doesn't want to do this though, because he's got like a pretty good life, and he is on track to having like massive political influence if his master gains massive political influence. Pretty much right afterwards though, he's told that his master has suddenly died, and that changes everything. That means that basically he's going to die too unless he runs away, so he takes the opportunity and runs away with the Atolian soldier. We do not actually learn the name of this Atolian character until much later in the book, but I, like probably many other readers, started to harbor suspicions that this was someone we had met before pretty early on, and was a little frustrated at how long it took the book to actually confirm those suspicions. Yes, this is someone we've met before. And the substance of this book is mostly the perilous journey that they make through the Mede Empire in their attempt to reach Atolia as things, you know, go wrong on this journey in any number of different ways. Here is the thing. The trick that this book plays, and by now you sort of come to expect that these books are playing a trick on you in some way, and this is basically the same trick that book 3 played, where you have a new POV character who basically doesn't know what Eugenides is capable of, who gets surprised by the end at what Eugenides is capable of. At this point, Eugenides is king of Atolia, right? At the beginning here, Kemet is given a pretty flimsy reason for why supposedly the king of Atolia wants to steal him away from the Mede Empire and offer him freedom in Atolia. If you've read the prior books, you know that that reason is bullshit. You know that Eugenides has something else up his sleeve with this entire mission. And so at this point, the surprise at the end is not a surprise for anyone who has been paying attention through the prior books in the series. I still enjoy it, it's still satisfying in a way, but there were no like new layers of revelation. And so the thing that this book would have really had to rely on to get a 5-star rating for me would have been these two characters, Kemet and the Atolian, and their growing friendship and trust over the course of this story, which I think is really supposed to be the heart of this story, and it wasn't as well done as I was hoping for. I didn't care as deeply about either of these characters as I really wanted to, and I didn't think that the story arc of their friendship was really brought to a conclusion in a way that was extremely emotionally satisfying for me. That said, I still think this is an incredibly well done political YA fantasy series, and I still gave this 4 stars. I also want to point out that even though it didn't affect my enjoyment of the book, I don't know how old Kemet is supposed to be in this book. I don't know that we ever got his age in Queen of Atolia, and I'm not sure how much time is supposed to have passed since then. Again, I've been reading this series very slowly. I have lost track a little bit of the chronology of events. But this is a YA series, and this is the first book in this series with a protagonist who did not feel like a YA protagonist to me. This is not the first time that this series has had protagonists sort of outgrow the YA protagonist age, but it's navigated that before in book 3 by switching to Costas as the POV character, and in book 4 switching to Sophos, so we got these younger POV characters. And this series does avoid ever giving like an explicit age for any of the characters, but to me, Kemet didn't feel like a YA protagonist in that his concerns didn't feel like they were YA protagonist concerns regardless of his age. He felt like an older character, or like the protagonist of an adult novel. So even though I know that most of this series' most ardent fans are probably adult readers at this point, because this is a series that was written over a very long stretch of many years, and most of the fans of the original books are adults now. This is the first one that I read and it was like, should this series even still be marketed as YA? Okay, there you have it. That is a January wrap-up. Hopefully there'll be more wrap-up soon, and the plan will become clear for how I'm going to catch up on these wrap-ups. Anyhow, let me know if you've read any of these books and what you think. I hope you're having a very nice day. That is all. Bye for now.